next review of Chapter 8. So I now only have Chapter 9, 10, 11 and 12 until I'm finished with Part 1. I'm really doing well with Plagueis at the moment. Once I got past pretty much the scene with the reptilians getting ready to be blasted in Chapter 6, yeah, it was 6. That was really when the book became new to me, because that's the point I had gotten up to previously, though I wasn't very well imagining Chapter 6, so it was still actually felt like a pretty new chapter. Anyway, on to Chapter 8. Yeah, it is 8. And this completely goes against my criticism from last chapter, which I do think I've almost figured out the facilitated anarchy. I think it may be referring to all little organisations and stuff, but I am still completely befuddled by that. Right now, Chapter 7, my Chapter 7 review isn't up, so if someone's left it in the comments, I'm afraid I haven't seen it yet. But as I'm recording this, but yeah, also I haven't done any imagery, I haven't done any sketches yet for a lot of these chapters. Fortunately, just haven't got round to it. But for Chapter 8, this is quite a story pushed and I guess action filled chapter. Not entirely action filled, but it has moments of action. You have basically Plagueis is learning of Venemus, having considered to take on some apprentices, and you had 6 people on that, and on that list there were only three of them were dead, and the other 3 were still alive, obviously. What else was I going to say in that situation? It was a Shido, and then it was a, what was it? An Iktotshi, and an Ortolan. I'm pretty sure the Shido and the Iktotshi go unnamed, but I know the Nartalair is the name of the Nortolan, so yeah. But Plagueis is basically going out to try and hunt them down and kind of figure them out to see whether they would pose a threat to him for another sneak attack. The Shido he lets go free. He's merciful on the Shido. For the Iktotshi, she wants to devote herself to Plagueis, but Plagueis recognises that her views and such are just too much in line with the Sith prior to the Bane Rule of 2, so he kills her and then mind tricks everyone into thinking she's just fainted. Of course, even though he's just electrocuted her to death. But and then finally with an Ortolan, he sends him off to try and fight some Jedi, presumably under the knowledge that he knew the Ortolan wouldn't be able to stand against them. But it does sound like he's actually doing it is actually putting up a little bit of a fight against them, but he is very quickly killed, unfortunately. Now this is a very, and I do mean very, long chapter, especially in comparison to the other chapters. This felt like it went on and on and on. I'm fairly sure I actually spent at least an hour or 2 reading it, which is usually typical for only a single chapter when it comes to me. But it really is a long chapter, so if you do go to read it, I would suggest taking a break once Plagueis has finished his confrontation with one of those adepts. I want to make that clear. If you're intending to go through the book, probably take a break at each of its adepts, because the way it goes into the next one, it's as if it's starting a new chapter anyway. So I wouldn't be too fussed about it. If you still want to read on through it though, do that. But it is a long chapter and a little bit of a chore to get through, particularly with for me, the Iktochi. Her segments just it just wasn't the most interesting, and it gets into probably my main, and that's again I think that chapter at times is a bit of a highlight of one of my problems with Plagueis, and it's the really diverse use of words, which, don't get me wrong, I think it is good that we're getting all these diverse use of words. It keeps the book from not feeling repetitive, but I'd rather the book feel more repetitive than not being able to understand half the things that are being said, because I'm constantly having to find myself for almost every other word just trying to figure out what is being said. That's what it feels like, at least. Luckily, Google eBooks, if you double click or highlight a word, you're given the definition, or you're given the option to define it. So you know, that's, to me, that's a good feature. It really is. But and it definitely saves a lot of time and effort and keeps your attention on the book, rather than having to go to Google, search it up, look at it, and then you've got to try and get back on focus with the book, and only 2 lines later you've got to search something up again. But it is, I think, at times it gets so diverse that you completely lose the meaning of the words and what James Luceno is trying to say in the book. Again, back in chapter 7, the facilitated, the facilitated anarchy, I have still can't wrap my head around what on earth that is meant to mean. If anyone knows, please tell me. But really, elsewhere in the chapter, chapter 8, it's not really, I guess, that complicated and diverse. I do think though, it's when it does get into the massive lore drops, it does get into the massive history stuff of Star Wars. It goes into depth with it. It does come, I guess, a little bit of a snooze fest is the best way to put it. It's not that it's boring, but it's you're waiting for the story to continue. And that's the problem. You're waiting for the story to continue, but you're being told all these things which are important, which probably are going to be important, and it's good for the people that want that lore. It's just when you're more interested in the story, it just doesn't really work. But anyway, I think this is a interesting chapter. We get to kind of see play a bit more Plagueis. I can't really specify anything at the moment. Nothing's really coming to mind. But we're kind of reminded of how he wants to, how he's. But I guess with the Iktochi, I keep forgetting what that species is called. But with her, I think she's probably the most. Well, she probably wasn't. She was by far the least interesting to read through, but she's also probably the most interesting to look back on and the most relevant to look back on, for me at least, which is really weird. But I think she is a bit of a reflection of what Plagueis is trying to move on from. You know, he's trying to move on from the Rule of Two, and she hasn't even moved on to that kind of idea. She's still trying to uphold the old Sith ideologies, and he takes them out for not being, I guess, up to date. And we get to see a bit more of how Plagueis is viewing it. He's trying to progress the Sith and what they're intending to do. As he's, at the moment, he's really just wanting to. He's trying to figure out it's immortal life, and he's wanting to he's wanting to complete the Sith grand plan. And because of being immune, he has a very long lifespan. And I know, like in the prologue, it says he would have lived for another 100 years, and that takes place in the Phantom Menace. This takes place about 30 years before. So, you know, Plagueis, he's in no shorthand of time. But, yeah, it's interesting to see how Plagueis is working, working, especially when it's... I don't even know what I'm saying anymore, but... Yeah, it was an enjoyable chapter, but a very long one at that. So, again, I'm not sure if there's too much to reflect upon in this chapter as well. At the moment, I don't feel like there's too much to really reflect upon in, but I guess with Plagueis, we get to kind of... there's not really anything I can really talk too much about when it comes to in terms of how they're furthering his character at the moment, but that will probably come in the next few chapters, hopefully, and if not, it's probably going to be in part 2 of the book. So yeah, I'll probably end this review off here. So thank you all for watching, and goodbye.